Hey there, horror movie tea sippers.
The following podcast episode will contain spoilers for the movie we are about to review. If you have not seen the movie and do not wish to have anything ruined prematurely, please do not continue to watch or listen until you have seen the movie.
And welcome to the Horror Movie Tea Podcast. Today we are covering Tetsuo, the Iron Man, which was requested by Carrie. Thank you so much, Carrie, for this request and all of the following requests that we will one day get to. But before... Huh?
We have a list.
Yes, we do. A long list. But before we go into the review, let's grab our cups and talk about tea. So, using my... It's probably going to be reversed. Yeah. It says, please don't kill me mug. Our Teespring mug. I am drinking the Plum Deluxe Tea Break White Tea. It's got white tea, orange peel, tangerine, honeydew melon, and love and gratitude. And this is apparently low caffeine.
I am drinking Yogi's raspberry leaf tea, the organic raspberry leaf tea. It only has organic raspberry leaves.
Plain and simple.
Yes.
And as always, thank you so much to Plum Deluxe for allowing us to continue to do what we love. And for our lovely tea sippers out there, brew yourself a cup of tea, sit back, relax, and we hope you enjoy the review. So for the summary, good old IMDb had a great short summary that I am going to go with. A businessman accidentally kills a metal fetishist,
Yes.
it just sounds wrong, who gets revenge by slowly turning the man into a grotesque hybrid of flesh and rusty metal. And that's it. So for entertainment, oh man, I forgot to do my rating. Oh, on the fly. So
It's going to be a great day, guys.
well, this was the one that I was least prepared for, to be fair. Because this one, just like, it's one of those where it's like at the end, your brain is just mush.
Yeah. One of the few things that I had written for this one, honestly, is that it's one part porno, one part ASMR, all weird.
Yes. That is very accurate.
So,
yeah. So for entertainment... I'm going to give this a 3.5. And I feel really bad because it's like I had heard good things about this movie. I wanted to like this movie.
she tried to like it.
I tried to like this movie. It does give you like David Lynch kind of feeling, but like in a more literal sense, like a lot less like underlying symbolism. But it is a very stylized movie. It does have a lot of interesting shots, and it is a little bit interesting, I'll add, that they have a lot of industrial sounds, and that's where you get the ASMR stuff from. And then the film is black and white, which...
A lot of the sounds for me were like the mouth sounds and the breathing and all.
Yeah, that too.
Move the mic away.
Yeah.
Stop it.
But the film is also black and white, which I'm not...
It was a choice.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure the purpose, I guess, so it's harder to tell what was metal and what was flesh. Though, to be fair, on the black and white choice, I feel like that was kind of a detriment to the film because I kind of had some issues whenever he was growing or the metal was coming out of him. I feel like it would be easier to tell what was going on if it had been color.
Well, especially since it was supposed to apparently be rusty metal, you can't really tell that.
Yeah, you can't tell that at all. I don't know why I kind of had an accent when I said all. Anyways, and then, but this movie, like we said, it's one of those movies at the end, your brain is just mush. Like, this is a 67-minute movie, and it feels so much longer. It's so trippy, and it's hard to make sense of what's going on. Like, you can tell the basic storyline kind of from the movie, but reading the synopsis or the summary like beforehand does kind of help you make sense of it. But even that only goes so far into helping you.
I feel like it definitely would have helped me. I went into it completely blind. I didn't read anything. I just hit play.
Yeah, I bet you're super confused.
A little bit.
Yeah. Just and then the effects of the movie were pretty interesting, though being honest, they didn't age too well.
Yeah.
But they weren't terrible. Like, even this day and age, they weren't terrible. I've seen a lot worse from movies that were newer than this one. But overall, for me, it was an interesting movie. But it's one of those movies, kind of like a David Lynch film, where you have to be in a particular mood to watch it. Otherwise, your brain is just not going to be prepared for it. But I know for me personally, like, I always judge a film on like if I was glad that I watched it or not. And while I don't regret watching it, it's kind of one where I'm like, I could have gone the rest of my life without watching it. I would have been okay.
Yeah.
So, but what would you rate it?
I would rate it a solid 3, honestly. I went into it blind. And when we saw the first scene of the gore and him shoving the metal rod into his leg and all, I had slightly higher hopes and expectations for it to be somewhat like almost like a Saw movie.
It starts off strong for sure.
It does. It really does. And it just goes really downhill after that. So the effects are better than a lot of other movies we've seen. Definitely better than Santa Jaws or Velocipaster, even with it being black and white. And Lamageddon. But but it's kind of it's just a really, really out there weird movie. And it just kind of gets lost in itself, especially at the end. Like, it was supposed to be a revenge kind of curse, and then it turns into, I'm going to take over everything. So it's just kind of, it gets away from its own point, I feel like.
Yeah, it's like the movie seems like it's so focused on, or for those who didn't catch on, it is kind of like an artsy type of film. And I feel like it's so focused. And the issue with a lot of artsy types of films is sometimes films like this get so focused on the artsy part that it's like it almost forgets the storytelling aspect, which is a huge, important thing about movies. Well, at least, I mean, not all movies can tell a story, I guess, but typically these types of movies are plot driven. And I mean, really the only thing that happens is he hits the guy, and then the guy slowly takes over him, and then they take over the world. Or they're like, oh, we're going to take over the world. And so there's not a lot of drive or anything to like keep you interested in the film. And the transformation is I guess technically slow, but it's not slow enough to have you like rooting for the character and hoping that they make it through. It's just,
you know nothing about the character.
Yeah, it's like they could have done it where kind of like The Fly or something like that, where it's like this, you get to know this character, and then they accidentally do this terrible thing, or they could even play upon it and be like, oh, he was negligent, like he was texting and driving, or, it's an older film, so he could be distracted some way and then hit this guy. And then he could be slowly transforming. Or what I think would really, what I was hoping this film would be was more like the guilt of him killing this person was overtaking him.
Yeah.
But I mean, it seems like this film is supposed to be taken more literally. And I feel like that was a bit more of a detriment.
A little bit. Yeah. Like we were saying before, I know nothing about these characters apart from there was a hit and run.
Yeah.
We don't know their names. I don't know if there even were names mentioned in the movie. And I know it's a short movie, it's only an hour. It feels a little longer in some parts.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple of funny scenes that go on a little bit.
Yeah.
But, and then there's some other just awkward, weird scenes. There's a random dude that pops out and starts beating him with a pipe or a bat or something that we have no idea who he is or why he's in the story or where he fits in. And then he disappears and we never see him again.
Yeah, and then there's like a metal tentacle type of scene, if you get my drift. So they definitely, there's a lot of sexual scene. It's kind of like, yeah, it's like a lot of like sexual stuff, a lot of grotesque stuff, and then just trippiness.
Weirdness.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just very odd all around. So
Yeah.
that's mostly what happened. And the doctor. They had a small scene of a doctor, which I guess is from the point of view of the guy that got hit by the accident, by the car.
Yeah, they kind of started switching it up towards the end, which made it additionally confusing.
Yeah, they never go back to the doctor, and they don't really give us any information in that scene for the most part. So it was just, the whole thing was weird.
Yeah, but
The only really decent way I can describe it. It was weird.
well, so for realism,
Yeah.
This one's tough. Like for me, I'm like, okay, it would be more realistic if this movie was supposed to be the representation of this businessman's guilt of accidentally, killing someone. But the fact that was literally supposed to happen, it's like they don't really explain. It's like if the guy is dead, then how is he able to turn this man into metal? Like, is it his ghost haunting him? We don't know. It's like they don't really explain. It's like,
Anything.
yeah, it's just a very simplistic storyline. They don't give you any sort of lore expansion, which I think is a part of the biggest downfall of this movie is the fact that they don't really expand on anything. It's like they give you an extremely basic storyline, one that is kind of hard to gather even from watching the film. Like you have to actually like read a little bit about the film before even starting. And then from there it's just all of these weird shots to make it interesting or whatever. So for realism, I would probably give it a 1 because I mean there were multiple things where you're like, okay, that's really crazy. Like the girlfriend where she ends up, she's scared because his nether regions turned into a drill. And so obviously and understandably she's scared. But then she is like, oh, I'm going to, penetrate myself with this thing. And then she dies. And you're like, what? Why? Why did you decide to do that? Like you were clearly showing that you were afraid and like you knew you could sense the danger. And then you're like, oh, screw it. I'm gonna, no pun intended. But
Very much intended.
but and then she dies. Like it was so bizarre. And there's just like random scenes like that where it's like it seems like they're making they're making logical decisions, and then you're like, what? Like, what just happened? Why did they change? Why did they go take a 180? Like, what the heck? But yeah.
They'd been doing just fine, and then they rolled a 1.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's really hard to expand on the realism on this one, because there's so many scenes like that. It'd be kind of redundant to repeat each and every scene. But the girlfriend scene, though, that one was by far the least realistic, because
Yeah.
you're like, you literally knew it was dangerous and you did it anyways, and now you're dead.
Well, also when she's like, "Not much scares me. This is fine. Just let me in." And she's like, "I'm not scared of you." And then immediately starts screaming.
Yeah, and she was really trying to go in. It's like, the guy obviously wants to be left alone. Just freaking leave.
And you saw he just completely destroyed a table with a nether drill.
His drill boner, one might say. But yeah. So that's all I got for realism. Very sweet, short, and to the point.
I give it a 0.5. Because there's not much in this movie that I can count as realistic
That's
at all.
fair.
Like when he first wakes up and there's a little bit of metal in his face and he barely touches it and it squirts blood.
It just like splooges.
Yeah, splooges all over the mirror and everything. He doesn't continue to try to take it out. He doesn't call anyone about it. He doesn't go to a doctor
Yeah.
and say, maybe I should get this checked out. Nothing. So that seemed a bit odd. And then nobody says anything when the random chick is running after him in the subway, trying to hurt him with a really grotesque arm or anything.
Yeah, that was real. I did not understand that scene.
Well, made no sense.
And that now that I think about it, they didn't really show the guy being guilty at all for killing the metal person.
They did and they didn't. They showed the accident and they showed them putting him in their car, and they took him to a wooded area where they presumably dumped the body and then had sex right in front of it. And which was weird, and they keep referencing that through most of the movie.
Yeah. And he is like watching them or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
It was weird.
It was a thing. It was weird. And felt rather unnecessary, but alright. And then when the lady from the train station traps him in the bathroom, essentially, she like hits him, but then he teleports almost to a different area that looked kind of like a car garage, like a mechanics area.
Yeah.
And then he continues to fight her there. So
It's like they teleported.
Yeah, it just didn't make any sense at all. And then their freaking weird movement scene at the end when they're fighting, the boss battle scene.
Yeah.
It's just so convoluted and weird and just hard to follow. And I'll be honest, I was exhausted when watching this anyway. So it didn't help. But it just, none of it seemed very realistic. I feel like it was actually, like you said before, a detriment that it was black and white. I know that they were trying to make a statement with it. I didn't quite get their statement. But I feel like they would have actually done better if it was color and you could see the gore and the flesh and viscera and everything going into him or coming out of him, whichever.
Yeah.
So I felt like they really hindered themselves in that aspect. I feel like the realism scale might have gone up if we had been able to tell what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
Because some scenes were really dark too.
Yeah.
So it's just hard to see altogether.
And then there's like random scenes where the fetishist was like, you know, kind of fetal position and like surrounded by metal. And it's like, I didn't get if that was a flashback or it was him like exacting his revenge on the guy. Like, I wasn't really sure what that meant.
Yeah, that was really difficult to interpret.
And they showed him a lot.
And those scenes were rather dark too.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's hard to give him a realism scale when they don't give us anything to go on.
Yeah.
So, but that's honestly all I really have to say. Like the entire time we were watching this movie, I'm just sitting here like, the hell are we watching?
Yeah, this one was a very difficult one to rate. Just because
the house made more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's like, you know, with these types of artsy films, they are a bit more difficult. But it's like, for example, The Witch. That is considered an artsy, like, historical film. But the fact that we can understand the details that the director went through and what they're trying to convey and all of these underlying themes, like, I feel like, even though it's not my favorite film, I feel like as far as art horror goes, that is a great film if you like those kind of movies. But with this one, it's just it's very hard to tell what the director was trying to go for, if anything. It's just completely chaotic and random. And that's why it's like we just keep harping and saying if this was just a representation of the businessman's guilt, it would make more sense than this being literal. So, but overall,
if they did make it into him fighting with his own guilt, I feel like he should have fought himself at the end instead of the fetishist. And just completely cut out the I'm going to take over the world now and turn everything metal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like we could have done without that bit.
Yeah, like I feel like this is a good movie for someone that really likes David Lynch type of films or just really artsy, like crazy, weird films. You will probably get some level of enjoyment. But if you're more like us, where well, I mean, I guess I do like some artsy films, but you know, like I said, I like them when they have a good like point to them and you can actually understand what the director is coming from and things like that. And I guess it's the difference between like traditional art and then modern art, where it's like you look at it and you're like, that's just a pile of trash. Like, what is that supposed to mean? Versus like this beautiful portrait of a woman. It's like it's two different types of art, but I need a little bit more meaning from.
Well, that was the other thing too. Whenever he was becoming more metal, there were a bunch of wires and all in him too, which seemed, at least in the black and white scale, they looked almost like plastic wires.
Yeah.
So it didn't really make that much sense in context.
Yeah. So, but those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Would you ever, is there any circumstance that you would recommend this movie?
If you want a really good laugh, then just like the portion, that'll give you a good laugh. And that's about all you'd need. And then the rest of it just I would do without.
Well,
when he destroyed the table.
Yeah. that was pretty funny.
We were dying in that scene.
We were like, what the heck is this?
It was such confused laughter too.
It really was, but it was that scene was by far the most entertaining of the movie.
It was.
It definitely was.
But
So yeah, that's all I got on that one.
well, thank you for joining us today, and thank you so much, Carrie, for the request. I'm sorry that we might not have enjoyed this as some others, but we appreciate the request regardless. We like expanding our horizons, and that's why we love listener requests, because we get requests that we never would have thought of, like urban legends and some other ones where we're like, wow, that was actually an underrated movie that we're glad that we watched. Or even being exposed, it's like, even though we're not a huge fan of Tetsuo, at least being exposed to it, I feel like makes us better reviewers in the long run.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
yeah. But for everyone who watched the movie, please comment on what you thought of it. And if you'd like to recommend a movie, game, or tea, and keep up to date with our content, you can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and most places you listen to podcasts.
And if you'd like to support the podcast, please subscribe, like, and share our content. If you'd like to support us monetarily, we have a Teespring and PayPal, or we have our affiliate link with Plum Deluxe. It does not affect the price of the tea, but it does allow us to continue to do what we love. And you can find all of the sites mentioned linked below. And until the next time, guys, stay safe and stay spoopy.
Bye.